I'm a scientist by trade, but I have some things that I'm like about, and I don't want to live closer than like 1,000 feet to like a high tension line. And I mean the big ones that are like 200 feet tall, you know, the big structures. The wires this thick.
What are the safety concerns for you about that?
I don't know. Do I want to find out?
All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Houston Ensemble podcast number 39. We've had a tumultuous week, and we've got one of the coolest guests that we could bring on, and luckily we met him at our home base of Eighth Wonder Brewery. We're bringing on the amazing Joe Ott. Joe, thank you for joining us.
Hey, yeah, it's a pleasure. Saw you guys kill it, what was it, a couple weeks ago over at Eighth Wonder, and definitely loved your music, by the way.
Thank you.
And we got to talking afterwards, and it sounded like you had something interesting going on here, so excited to be here.
Yeah, and, you know, we were just playing the music, and somehow, I don't even know how we started talking to you, but maybe you guys said something about the music, and that was cool, and then I think I said, what do you do? And then you said NASA, and then that's a trigger word for me in the most positive way.
It's a four-letter word, yeah.
It is a four-letter word, and I said, we want you on the podcast. And you're gracious enough to come, so we're actually so appreciative of you coming.
Yeah. Simple as that.
It's super cool.
It sounds fun.
We're just like, you know, we're into all crazy stuff, and it's cool to speak with somebody who has something that's so interesting and also so at such a high skill level.
Yeah.
Well, knock on wood, but I appreciate that.
And we've tried to get other NASA people, and so far we've pretty much gotten no's.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I mean,
for obvious reasons.
Everybody cares about their careers and stuff, so that makes sense. By the way, before we dive too deep, you know, I'm just representing my own opinions here today. I am not a spokesperson for NASA. I don't represent anything that's, you know, of the opinion of NASA per se. What I do is I'm a contractor for a NASA program, right? So I have knowledge of that, plus I'm a huge space nerd myself, so that leads to my own opinions, of course.
Now, I wanted to get like a little background on you. You were in the military?
So, yeah, I guess if we're going background, you know, I was just always one of those kids who wanted to be an astronaut, right? And, you know, grew up staring at airplanes in the sky, you know, having little model spaceships in my room, and wanted to try to be an astronaut. Now, this is, of course, back when we had a shuttle program and things were a bit different with the U.S. space program. But one of the best ways to become an astronaut at the time was to be essentially an aerospace engineer, and a naval pilot was really a common skill set of people who flew the shuttle, right? So I tried to become a naval aviator. My first year of college, I did aerospace engineering and Navy ROTC, right? So it was just, you know, Navy ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps, and I got injured and I couldn't continue PT, physical training stuff, so I had to kind of reassess things, so on and so forth. And yeah, so I stopped aerospace engineering altogether because it wasn't working out. I transitioned to aeronautical science, which is just professional pilot, basically, because I wanted to fly.
Are you tired of the government trying to calcify your pineal gland and turn you into nothing more than a working zombie? Look no further, because the Houston Ensemble has now been sponsored by the amazing Epic Water Filters. Tell us what they do, Armin.
Epic Water Filter is the only true filtration system you need. All these other filtration systems skip out on so many terrible chemicals and minerals that are still in your water and that you should not be drinking.
Fluoride, chromium, lead, all these other things that you do not want in your water. We've got water bottles with filters on them. We've got home installation filters. We've even got pitchers. Right now you can get 20% off any of these items on epicwaterfilters.com if you use our discount code Houston Ensemble, all lowercase, one word.
That's Houston Ensemble, lowercase, one word, for 20% off your Epic Water Filter.
And unfortunately, I got into that for a little bit, and that was like 2008, 2009 time frame. And that was when a lot of airlines were going on furlough, or that was right after the collapse, right? The financial collapse.
Yeah.
So it was not a good time for the industry. So I had to find something else to do because, everybody I knew was not getting jobs or whatever. So took an exploratory class in what's called human factors, or human factors engineering, which is essentially kind of like engineering psychology. So it's largely a background in psychology and biophysics, and then you apply that to engineering design. So we design systems around the human instead of the human compensating for a crappy system. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So anyways, that turned out to be a good fit. And I also got my pilot training along the way, so I have my private pilot's license, at least.
Cool.
So that was a fun hobby. But then anyways, went to grad school and then started working where I work, and it's been a wild ride.
So you're a licensed, like you can fly small airplanes, right?
Yeah, private pilot.
Private pilot.
Yeah, for single engine land aircraft.
Well,
Cool.
you know what? We just said last
We were just
night
talking about getting a private
we
plane.
need a private pilot who
That'd be
we
so
can,
we're
who we
winning a
can
pilot.
trust.
Yeah, who we can trust. So, hey, speak things into existence.
Yeah.
But
That is
I was
funny.
gonna say, Joe, because before we turned on the cameras, we actually briefly went into something that I've been researching. And the interesting thing is, here at this, we're a musical project. We do a lot of things, but we're a Renaissance project. What we believe, what that means to us, is that we don't just deal with music. We deal with the arts. We deal with the sciences. We deal with like the trajectory of where the human race has gone. And
Very cool.
sometimes that gets us into things that like just bewilder us.
Yeah.
Just blow my mind. Like one of those things is the warp drive that my first experience with this concept. First of all, we all know of warp drives from sci-fi. Okay, we all know of the peculiar or the iconic image of the warp drive speed, etc. in Star Trek.
Yes.
But after reading this 2010 paper by a renowned scientist who I believe NASA procured this paper from, he discusses the first practical model of a warp drive system that human beings can actually create. And I was going to see if you had some technical knowledge of that.
Yeah, sure. So I have not worked directly on any warp drive stuff, but I am somewhat familiar with ion propulsion, which is essentially, from my understanding, what that is. So yeah, I was in grad school doing my thesis over at NASA Ames up in the Bay Area in California at the time. So that was like 2012-ish. So that was kind of right when that paper came out, and I remember being all nerdy about it, reading about it. Seemed really cool. So fast forward to today, as I was mentioning to you before, part of the efforts that I work on are for a lunar orbiting space station for humanity's return to the moon, which I'd love to talk to you all about. And essentially, that's going to stay in orbit with a main engine that keeps it in orbit around the moon that's an ion propulsion engine. So they're cool. It's essentially going to use a tremendous size solar array or solar panels to capture energy from the sun, of course, and it'll transfer that into the PPE, or the power propulsion element of that system, and it translates that into ion propulsion. So it's using literally electrical power generated from the sun or from solar energy into propulsive energy. So it's very low propulsion over a long period of time. So we're going to be in a big halo-type orbit around the moon. It's going to take actually almost a week to go all the way around for various reasons we can get into later. But when it needs to keep that orbit healthy or not, degenerate that orbit, it needs to perform booster burns, just like the International Space Station does. They occasionally do it. So they'll be doing these ion propulsion, orbital maintenance burns continuously with this ion engine, which is really the first of its kind, and that'll be the deepest in space that type of engine has ever been used. So,
Wow.
pretty cool stuff. That company that has that PPE, or that power propulsion element, is Maxar Technologies. So you can Google them, but pretty awesome
Wow.
stuff.
And can I ask, what really is the overall goal for that project?
Yeah. Well,
Or
I
goals,
guess we have technical goals, and then there's philosophical goals. So yeah, it's overall the whole program is called the Artemis program,
Right.
which is humanity's return to the moon. It's going to bring the first woman and the next man to the lunar surface, which is,
Right.
I mean, how cool is that, right? It's kind of like the Apollo era stuff all over again,
Mm-hmm.
even better.
And that's Orion, or is that like a different part
Orion
of
is a part of it, yeah. So there's many different pieces. So again, the overall program is Artemis. The launch vehicle is going to be, well, it's going to be a couple of them at this point. Space Launch System, which had a successful green run yesterday, by the way.
Oh,
they
cool.
Had fun. You could look that up on YouTube.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be some Falcon heavy stuff, super heavy stuff.
Mm.
And, essentially, Orion is the crewed capsule that's going to be the taxi cab for people from Earth to lunar orbit.
Okay.
And then they're going to go in Orion. They're going to dock with the gateway, the lunar gateway, which is in orbit around the moon, use that as an operating base, and then they'll take basically this other part of it called HLS, or Human Landing System, from that lunar gateway down to the surface and back again. Kind of like, if you think back in the day, Apollo program, they had the LIM, the Lunar Landing Module. It'll be very similar to that, just, next generation. So yeah, Orion's a part of, many pieces that bring
Right.
this whole Artemis program together.
When I was looking through that paper, obviously I'm an idiot. You know what I'm saying? My master's degree, if you can even call it that, is in music, which means that I'm a professional idiot.
Music theory, is that it?
It's music performance.
Oh,
Playing
Which
guitar.
which means that I'm a master of the theory.
awesome.
I'm the master of the hypnotizing you with the notes and stuff. But that
Don't sell
does.
yourself short. That's
Right.
you gotta be smart for that.
I mean, listen. I was on the track of becoming a physicist. I had my little scholarship, trying to prepare it for U Chicago, which had to my understanding, still has one of the really good physics programs in this country. Blah blah blah. But what happened was I decided to switch gears because I didn't feel like my spirit was in actually mechanical physics. I felt like my spirit was in the mechanics of the emotions of the universe. You know what I'm saying?
Ooh.
But what have you? When I was reading through the 2010 paper, I felt like the ultimate goal. And if you don't know anything about this, that's fine. But as long as you're here, I feel like I have to ask this question.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like the ultimate goal was to create a craft that could continuously bend space-time on a very small scale around the perimeter of the vehicle. And by doing so, they are hoping of creating that cascading effect where if you bend space-time repeatedly onto itself, that creates an exponential speed phenomena. So what happens is you build it up, and at a certain point, it has like this kind of wormhole effect. Do you have any technical comments on that?
Yeah, so these would, again, only be my opinion. I don't work on a program that does anything like that. I'm not even convinced that technology exists.
Yeah.
But as I said, I'm a space nerd. I like to read this stuff too and pontificate. So, my understanding was, that whole theory of how that warp drive, the more sci-fi version of warp drive is supposed to work is, essentially the concept is they're compressing space-time in front of the vessel and expanding space-time in the rear of the vessel, and that obviously has kind of like a vacuum tube effect of propelling it forward. Basically really fast speeds. So that's the extent of the theory that I'm familiar with. The real question is how. How do you achieve that? Because if we could bend space-time all easily, we would, I'm sure, have many more technologies that are much more futuristic. We'd have flying cars and stuff and all this anti-gravity machines, whatever you want to call it, probably. It takes a tremendous amount of energy to it would likely take a tremendous amount of energy to really bend space-time, right? So I don't know how that would be achieved. I don't know. I recall hearing some fun stuff about, what was that guy from Area 51?
Bob
Lazar?
Bob Lazar, that's right.
Yeah.
He was talking about some drive that, it had like 3 modes of operation.
Yes.
and it could point in 3 directions or multiple configurations to
Yes.
change whether it's going just forward fast or if it needs to move in 3D space. And
Did that make
something like
sense
that.
to you when he was going through that? Did that
Yeah,
make
and I'm
sense
going
to
off
you?
of this Netflix thing that I watched, by the way.
Oh,
which
okay.
Oh,
sounds
you
like
watched the
interesting.
documentary.
Yeah, it was.
Okay.
I have not
It
seen
was a
this.
little underwhelming, by the way, in my personal opinion.
I've only seen a piece of it. I more go off of his talk with Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Oh,
I thought that was-
I
that was-
saw that too.
I thought that was pretty in depth compared to what I saw from the
Well,
documentary.
there's a couple of, so Bob Lazar did a number of interviews through the 90s, and then now he kind of reemerged for whatever reason.
I think that's because Jeremy Corbell, the maker of the documentary,
Jeremy Corbell,
wanted
right.
to make it public
Yeah.
or make it bigger.
Well, once again, like, I'm into all sorts of things. When we call ourselves a Renaissance movement, and that includes, believe it or not, and I know that it might not appear very legitimate to think about things from this angle, but I'm also very into body language.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't rely on body language 100% of the time, but what you can rely it on is like what Sherlock Holmes does. Is like he looks into the person and he figures out maybe what their general beliefs are, maybe what their general patterns are. Nothing
Sure.
too specific.
Right.
But I found what's interesting about Bob Lazar is that his detailed explanation of the propulsion system, the chemical reactions, the physical reactions that are happening inside the aircraft to generate the anti-gravitational effect are pretty consistent. He doesn't seem to get too squirrely about it. And he doesn't give a surface level explanation of things. He's pretty
Right,
in depth
yeah.
about it. And there's one element in particular he talks about that is, at the core of the system, element 115.
I was waiting for you to bring that up.
Yeah. Element 115, as we've heard in decades past, was a kind of theoretical element that they were predicting in the periodic table.
Right.
As you can predict elements on the periodic table based
Right,
on
just
the
add protons, neutrons,
exactly
all that fun stuff.
Yeah. So if any of you remember basic chemistry, you might remember that stuff. So, and what happened was we discovered around the early 2000s, I believe, that this element was finally found in a Russian laboratory for a
Oh.
brief moment of time.
Oh, I didn't hear about that.
Yeah, you can look this up. This is mainline history. And element 115 is on the periodic table now. It has been added. There's more elements even
Yeah.
afterwards.
Sure.
So
Right.
that is pretty tremendous. Now, however, if you're working behind the scenes as a scientist, maybe you have some word of there being, elements in the laboratory,
Yeah. Well, it's not been any labs that I've had access to, but I think that's a really cool concept. Again, it comes down to the energy source and how you get element 115, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I recall from Bob Lazar's theories, I think it had to do, it was either element 113 or 114, and you had some device that shoots another proton out or something at the right speed.
Mhm.
Or this is really
It's a
probably
tiny
far off,
particle
but-
reactor, what he claims.
Oh, sure, yeah. So that was how they, basically some sort of atomic collision
Right.
that created element 115, and that reaction was what propelled this system that he explains. But that's the extent of my knowledge, and that's all, Netflix documentary stuff, I think. So that's a really cool concept. From what I've Googled about nuclear reactors, they have some sort of process where they interact with a nuclear enriched material, and it's either some decay or some sort of reaction that causes that energy. So, it would seem to hold water.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Crazy.
When just because we're on the topic of Bob Lazar, we kind of always like to do this. Obviously, Bob said in the S4 base he saw, I think, 9 different craft that they had in the base, but he only worked on one of them and only went inside one of them. What are your thoughts on it? Do you think what he's saying is salient? Do you think we have those craft? Do you think actually we've had contact? There's stuff. There's some documents that have been released with President Eisenhower that have alluded to the fact that maybe we've even had meetings.
Yeah, that'd be really cool if the Men in Black were real and their first contact story was true.
Yeah.
You know, I'm one of those people who wants to believe.
Right.
First off, so no matter what I say, like I want it to be true.
Yeah.
Same with like ghosts and other phenomena. Like I'm always looking. I haven't been
Yeah.
convinced yet. If I find a ghost or something or an alien, whatever, I got some serious questions for him.
I'm gonna
You know
have to
what I mean?
tell. I'm gonna have to tell
I got
him
some
the
serious
story.
questions for him, so I just haven't found one yet. But no, I mean my knowledge on that's probably the same as yours.
Okay.
Uh,
Do you have a security clearance?
I do.
Is it? Could you like say specifically which security clearance it's like the name of it?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I guess it's on my LinkedIn, I'm pretty sure. But I do have top secret clearance.
Okay, that's cool. It's just cool.
Which might expire soon, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I'm not working the program that really required it anymore.
Are
Interesting.
you aware of the clearances above that threshold?
Yeah, I've looked it up on the internet.
Yeah.
I've heard of some crazy stuff like.
But they
I
don't
know,
make it apparent to you that there's anything above that. There's no
not
indication.
apparent to me. No.
Right.
No,
Right,
I mean,
right.
I've just Googled it, and I
Yeah.
think I saw something like galactic, super top secret or something. and it just
Galactic.
starts sounding more and more ridiculous. But
yeah.
But no, that's not like on paper that I look at
Yeah.
for some rank scale.
And
no.
just for the record, according to what we know, the highest would be the majestic clearance.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I think I've heard of
They
that.
refer to it as magic eyes only or majestic clearance.
Okay.
Apparently,
Yeah.
that's the majestic 12.
Getting into some QAnon stuff here.
I actually don't think that that's I mean, maybe QAnon's into that.
Yeah.
What do you think?
He's got
Are you a
Q
Q
clearance,
person?
right? No, I'm not. I mean, hell, there's been a lot of surprises the past couple of years, so I guess
There
I
really
wouldn't be
has,
terribly
hasn't it?
surprised.
Yeah,
It
but
really has.
It
I
would
mean-
not appear that he is crazy.
What is one of the surprises? I feel like one of the surprises is, and I want to backtrack about the top secret stuff and
Sure.
where I got that intel from. Well, maybe I can't even talk about that. But let's go into the what were we talking about?
The magic?
Not that
The-
QAnon. I can't even say
Rewind
that.
the
My
tape.
bad.
Oh,
My bad.
but what I wanted to say real quick though is, what's interesting is that it's not really that public. Maybe you know about it, but we do have a like space force, a United States space force,
of
like
late.
part of the military that
Yeah.
I believe was created under Trump. Wasn't it created under Trump?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my understanding, he kind of rebranded things, in my opinion.
Okay, rebranded.
I'm not an expert in this. Honestly, I'm too freaking busy to like really keep up with everything. So
Yeah.
please don't take it with a grain of salt. But
For sure.
yeah, I mean, there was U.S. Space Command, which was kind of loosely associated with the Air Force. You know, I'm familiar with some of those programs too. So it was just kind of a separation of that and making it its own, you know, giving it its own swim lane and calling it Space Force.
Have you seen the logo for it?
Not recently, I don't think so.
I gotta show you, bro. It is the Star Trek logo.
Oh,
Yeah.
well, that's cool. There's a lot of nerds that work on space programs. I mean,
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, which
Joe.
is cool.
Um,
Hold on, real quick.
Yeah.
Let Joe look at the logo.
oh yeah, that looks
That's
like
it.
the thing that they wear to the little comm.
The badge, yeah.
the little-
It's cool. But most people
I'm
don't
about
know
it.
that we actually have that.
yeah.
And it's actually very exciting that we do.
Yeah, I saw they have a kick-ass commercial too.
Yeah.
I have
It
not
flew
seen the
across
commercial.
my Instagram feed.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, this commercial hits different.
You post cool shit on Instagram.
Oh, thanks.
I
I
watch the
try.
videos that you post on your story.
I try.
Joe,
It's all space stuff.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, please.
Have you heard of Anon?
Different from QAnon?
Just Anon. You know what that is?
No.
So I feel like I can talk about this because this is just mainline stories now. The popularity of this group called Anon really surged during the Occupy Wall Street movement.
Okay.
You remember that?
Oh, I sure do.
So the one of the incendiary factors of that movement, why it really kind of exploded internationally, was that there were allegedly, just a mountain of damning evidence that was leaked by this quote unquote hacker group. okay, that revealed the just obscene amount of money, black money, that was behind the scenes in the global market. To demonstrate the point that our belief that the separation of wealth is way more intense than even we had realized.
Oh, yeah.
So that triggered the international Occupy Wall Street movement.
Did that trigger it? Okay.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, of course, people prior to that were already very upset and frustrated about the remedial labor shit.
Yeah, there was some build up to it.
You know, there was build up to it. Now, as far as, I'm going to call him cute.
Okay.
When the cute movement came in, what happened was that there was an attempt to smear their image. And the reason why it's called QAnon is that they're trying to conflate the two groups. This group is related to that group. They're both doing the same thing. The original Anon movement was kind of discredited because what do you do with whistleblowers? You either extradite them, you imprison them secretly, or you discredit them.
That's what I hear, yeah.
You know what I mean? What else are you going to do? As a government, you have to act for the security of your nation. And if that means getting rid of someone somehow, some way, they'll do that.
Yeah.
Now, I can't comment on the exact specifics. I don't know anything about this stuff. But what I know is from mainline history, from these kinds of incidents having happened before. When our people are caught by other governments, legally, and this is under U.S. code, the U.S. has no obligation to retrieve that person or to save their lives. So when an intelligence leak occurs, and this is in U.S. code, the United States is under no obligation of protecting that individual anymore. That individual basically gave up their rights by giving up information.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
So that being said, I do not want to discuss the ethological merits of these groups, because at the end of the day, some cute members and some Anon members are I was gonna say neckbeards. We're neckbeards, but they are just nerdy people, probably a depressed lifestyle, have nothing better to do.
Need something to do. Right?
Need something to do. And so if we go at it from that angle, then you can just discredit anything they say. You can just say, well, these are a bunch of losers.
Fake news is a dangerous prospect, but yeah, for sure.
But when you look at what they actually release, and that is my only concern. I want to look at the merits of the documents that have been,
or just what has been released, not by them, but just in general by everybody.
For example, one of the things that they released, but something that the American public had already accepted, was that the weapons of mass destruction was a false flag.
Oh, for the Iraq war.
Yeah.
Yeah. Proven to be a lie. Colin Powell on the stand lying to the UN about that.
It's mainline history now.
Sure. Yeah.
What else is mainline history? Gulf of Tonkin was a false flag operation.
You know, when we talk about mainline history, you know, remember the chronology of events, right?
Yeah.
I mean, is Colin Powell, was he wrong? Was he lying? I don't know. But at the time, did he think he was correct based on the intel that was available? Was that the best guess of the truth at the time? You know, and was he just operating off of potentially false pretenses or bad intel or
it could have
whatever?
been compartmentalized to the point where he thought that he was telling the truth, but then in retrospect, I watched this really amazing Al Jazeera documentary about this 2 years ago, specifically about the weapons of mass destruction. I do think that it's actually totally at the point where they're like he was lying, and they have plenty of documents to prove it. We'd have to. I would want to go back to that to quote everything more specifically. Don't take my word for it.
Sure.
But just as an example.
Yeah.
Just as an example, and you know, a lot of people, especially in very high up positions, when it becomes that compartmentalized, they don't know everything that's going on, and that's what they need to do because they need to divide everything.
Why should anybody know all of that's going on? If I'm running a business and you're my employee, I'm not going to tell you every single goddamn detail.
No. I mean, you could Google, you know, talk about security levels. There's SCI. It's common knowledge. It's secret compartmentalized information. That's a
There you
layer
go.
on top of TS, top secret.
There
So I
you
mean,
go.
that's there for a reason.
That's one level above top secret that we know of.
It's kind of parallel with it. Like you gotta get TS to get SCI
Exactly.
typically, and that varies by program. So
When
like,
you mentioned fake news, what is your perspective on that? What does that mean to you, fake news?
Oh, I got something to say after that.
yeah, so that's something that's gotten really popular in the past few years.
Yeah, what does that mean?
Well, I mean, honestly, it sounds like a deflection technique for political purposes.
Okay.
Deflection on one side or deflection on both sides, would you say?
Well, that's the thing. If you start questioning the validity of anybody's source of information,
Yeah.
then you're in a Mexican standoff.
What
of
do you
who's-
Can-
yeah,
who's
what
right.
do you
I mean,
trust?
yeah,
Can I-
it's just-
Can I show a video
Yeah.
to him real quick?
Yeah.
I would love to get your opinion on this. Just as this came out the other day, this is a video that came out on Bloomberg Quick Take News, just on YouTube, and I saw it on Reddit quickly, and it's a little bit alarming. Obviously, we'll talk about it here in a second. Let's go to it. Just to set the stage, this is Joe Biden at the White House. They just ask him one question. Again, this is from Bloomberg Quick Take. This is downloaded exactly from the site.
Give him a good angle.
No, I can see.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah, I'm about to.
I'm not picky.
I'm gonna let you watch it first. You tell me if you see anything, and then we'll watch it one more time.
Okay.
Did you notice anything?
I guess I noticed somebody walking away from him in the background.
Okay. They're just saying, "Are you going to visit the southern border?" He says, "Not at the moment." That's it. That's
okay, I
that's
couldn't
not
read that.
really
Okay.
that's not really the important part. Watch his hands and just let me know what you think.
Ah.
Do you
Joe, do you
see
still- do you see
what I'm getting
anything?
at? Joe, do you see
Well,
what's happening
Did he
with
throw
Joe?
up some sort of gain sign that I didn't recognize, or?
Okay, Joe. I'll give you a much better view right here. I have a big screen.
Okay, let's do it.
I know
I
you'll
think
be
he
able to
can
see
see
this,
it.
Joe.
All right.
This is not. I'm not like. Joe, look at this tiny dot in the corner of the screen. No, Joe.
I'm looking for everything.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
I didn't notice it until somebody said it exactly. So, and we're not trying to freaking trick you right now. Don't think about that.
No.
We're not trying to be annoying.
As a matter of fact, let it be very clear.
I'm
I'm
interested.
going on YouTube. I'm not pulling up some weird source that I have.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
Quick take.
Bloomberg Quick Take.
Yeah.
Joe Biden, southern border.
Down the YouTube rabbit hole. I mean, so yeah, he's just not at the moment.
Okay,
let's
come on, go on,
let's
go on.
talk. No,
All right.
let's just talk about it.
All right, look.
Because-
I'm not sure I'm catching it.
No, it's okay. Look. I'm gonna. Do you see what I'm saying?
Oh, it's in front of the mic.
Yeah.
Now, I know you're kind of a physicist engineer. I know that perspective is hard sometimes on two-dimensional video, but
Sure.
you know.
But we do have two angles to also go back to if we want.
Yeah, I mean.
All right, so the mic is in front. The mic boom thing is in front of his hand. That one's behind.
Yeah.
Matter
Artificially.
of fact, let's just use YouTube's playback speed option. Let's go to 2.5.
But you also see his wrist brush against it on the way down. Watch right there. Did you see the little feathers of it move when his
The
brush?
feathers move?
Oh, the fur, whatever the
The feathers. Are you sure the feathers move? So his hand somehow went from the front of the mics in front of him to getting brushed by the feathers of the other, is what you're saying.
Like, imagine what his arm
I mean,
would
to me,
do.
it looks like this. Like he's got the two. He's kind of just coming between the two. Is that not?
Okay, but let's think about pure perspective, Joe. Okay, you're an engineer. You're Joe. You don't.
Okay,
have,
long story short,
okay.
it's a green screen.
Okay, it's a green screen.
Okay.
Now,
All right.
And I'm only bringing that up because we were talking about fake news. I actually didn't even plan to bring that up at all, but when I was like, oh shit, this just came out yesterday. Every single.
what's the second angle?
It's from the I have it.
Well, so hang on. What's the big point? So it's a green screen. Okay.
If it is a green screen, that's actually fine. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe like they're worried about, Joe being exposed to people, something like that. But what it does is it causes concern for me. Just on the most basic level, I'm just like, the fact that they're at the point where they are using a green screen and they're using a green screen not well.
That is
a little...
As a video editor, I can tell you right now, that was the most
poor.
laughable usage of green screen.
It's poor.
A high school video student would have gotten a D for that project.
And the dislike ratio along with the comments, like every single comment is about that.
Okay.
Now, I didn't read the comment. Like, I found it on Reddit first, just on the front page. And then I went to the video and I saw the comments and I was like, oh, shit. Would you agree it's a little worrisome regarding being transparent about things?
Sure, but I mean, let's zoom out a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, you could zoom in on stuff and draw conclusions all day.
Absolutely.
But ultimately, I mean, news these days, it's inherently, what's the right phrase I'm trying to say? Not propaganda, but it has an agenda.
Curated?
It's got an agenda, all the news networks are owned by very few people. It's obviously used as a political tool.
Yeah.
There's a lot of money behind it. There's a lot of influence behind it. It's a powerful thing. News can be a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And like any powerful thing, it can be used for good or bad.
Yeah.
Right? So when you think about it like that, things can be true, things cannot be true. It depends on where you're getting your news from and what you truly believe based on your own experiences, right? Typically.
Right. Yeah.
At least it should be. So when we get into the concept of fake news, which is a concept that I feel like has been just weaponized over the past 4 years or so, give or take, to really discredit, political attacks, but the repercussions of people thinking about fake news being so prevalent is, if there's really good news that's really true, people won't pay attention to it, like i.e. Fauci or something like that. You know what I mean? It has this ripple effect that's might have some political gain for a certain party, but has repercussions that just you're getting people doubting science. That's what it ultimately leads to, because everyone's questioning their source and everything, and then we're like, well, we got science. Like you said, I'm reading papers on this ion propulsion stuff. It's here. I like the empirical evidence. Is what you're saying.
Right.
Yeah.
If people start questioning that,
I agree.
what are you gonna do?
And I'll tell you right now,
of reality.
I'll be straight up with you. During my deep dives, I find a lot of individuals who are actually not willing to look at scientific data. And
It's sad.
Now, that being said, I'm also seeing people from every side and all sides not willing to look at scientific data. Not just any particular group. I find that it is a pervasive phenomenon in people in general to avoid things that require a little more brain, capacity.
Well, there's two things there, I think. I think because people, if they're going to learn something that's against their personal beliefs,
it's hard.
they have a bias against believing it,
Exactly.
right? You need a relatively open mind to be able to absorb all. As a scientist, as somebody who has a science research paper that's been published, you have to be ready for any surprise. You have your hypothesis, and the conclusion can be literally proving your hypothesis right, wrong, or something in between.
Yes.
Right? And there's no shame, right? You're doing the science. You're figuring it out. But the way people act about news and fake news and stuff today is there's shame in being wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Shaming is another big thing going on. Cancel culture is a whole other thing going on. But, it's all a big perfect storm. It's a big perfect storm. And, you need to trust the process of science. You need to trust in peer review. People question, climate data. There's 9 out of 10 scientists say it's an issue, one doesn't. Let's focus on the one who doesn't, But that's what peer review is for, because you get a perspective of all of it from unbiased parties in a double-blind peer review. So when people say that there's political science that's funded, there's elements of that are true. There's chemists for Exxon that have been told not to say certain things, and they come back now and they say, we were not supposed to say certain things. You find this out, and that's bad. But like a scientist from a petro company is different from NASA scientists telling you that the Earth is round, and not flat. So it's got this ripple effect that could just be so damaging because nobody believes you no matter what the science says.
So you can get to the point where you think, like the moon is following you and your dog works for the Illuminati, and it can get way too intense.
Prove me wrong, bro.
And it can
Prove me wrong.
Intense.
What are you going to do?
Now, I totally agree with what you're saying. What I find alarming on a pure psychological level is that what happened is we went into this country from actually being very scrupulous about the media to basically at this point digesting most of what they say pretty much without much leeway. And it's gone to the point where we now believe that it is only a certain group of people that question the news. And those are the damned group. And that the other group is the righteous group. And it's very silly to me because we knew for almost a century in this country that the corporatocracy was very fishy. We knew
corporatocracy, that's a good word.
Yeah, I mean, whatever you want to call it. Like,
they,
a few news companies own everything. A few umbrella organizations own most of the companies on in this side of the world, at least.
Sphere of influence, yeah.
Right. So we were hesitant to just take everything, as propaganda. We were hesitant about propaganda, but now we eat up the propaganda. It's a weird phenomenological shift. That's a little concerning to me. It's further concerning that to this day we continue to use the us versus them mentality to either discredit this side or discredit this side or that side, whatever is convenient to discredit at that point in time for the larger agenda, as you say, will be the side that is discredited. If this guy's the president now, we'll crap on him. If this guy's the president now, we'll crap on him. But the war continues because it's an ideological war in many senses. And in that hubbub, as an individual, it can be extremely difficult to sort through the nonsense and look at something that has any credibility. Sometimes that involves a lot of risk, because I believe that the only thing worse than taking anything into yourself without some sort of investigation, the only thing worse than that is believing that you're too stupid or to buy into the notion that intellectual laziness is actually the only option anymore. Because how are you supposed to know?
Yeah.
Exactly. Intellectual laziness. That's a good one, too. You got a lot of good phrases, man. I like the way you speak.
Well, I think a lot about these things because I don't like to think in terms of left versus right. I think that is an ideological trap.
I totally agree. Yeah, you touch upon a lot of really good stuff. Leading to some of what you're talking about, the polarization aspect is something that's it's making me sick nowadays. I think that's also something that's been weaponized by our adversaries, both foreign and domestic. Just personal opinion here. Think about it. Polarizing a nation can be a way to potentially implode the nation from the inside out. Obviously, with America being number one, and the other axes of powers not liking that we're number one. If they can't beat us technologically or have a bigger military to commandeer us, or at least commandeer that position of number one, they're going to look for alternate ways, right? Influence over the populace is something that technology has made easier and easier, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you see all these influences on social media or in the news or what have you, and it ends up doing, I think what our adversaries want us to be so polarized that once the going gets tough, people are just going to fend for themselves, and they're not going to be together as a nation and get through whatever they need to. And we're already seeing some of that. So that's what's scary too. It can be used against us. So again, technology is behind a lot of this. A lot of it was based on designing stuff to get the most interaction, right?
Yeah.
To get the most clickbait reaction, to get that dopamine hit once you click on something. And there's physiological reasons behind why these things work, which is terrifying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's terrifying. It was something that was made for a capitalistic purpose for a social media company, and now it can be weaponized across political platforms and influence elections. I mean, it's crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds conspiracy theory stuff, but there's data that shows that it's true.
We like the term complacency theory as well. We like. See, for me, words are powerful, but they're effective mostly to the people that avoid thinking on a deeper level, or don't want to think on a deeper level, or think it's a waste of time. They have their own lives.
Simply don't want to think about something that would go against what they want to know.
Yeah, because look, you got kids, you got a family, you got a
reputation.
paycheck, you got a reputation.
Yeah, reputation.
Why should I spend countless hours doing wherever, looking at whatever? It's a waste of time, right?
Totally true. Yeah, I mean, we need to have science communicators for that reason. In my opinion, good, effective science communicators. We need to have the Neil deGrasse Tysons of the world. We need to have, whoever else is really good at articulating things and examples that people can understand, and in a way generate trust, kind of like a celebrity does. I think people listen to Leonardo DiCaprio talk about environmental science because they like his movies. He's familiar.
Yeah,
so
I think
that helps.
We might differ on this one perspective, is that I don't want to listen to the celebrity scientist.
Oh,
I want to.
Fair. There's danger there too,
I
right?
want to listen to the Nobel laureate whose no one has heard of.
Well, but look at what happened to Fauci. That's exactly Fauci. That's a case study for him, right? He was the most cited viral biological, whatever it is, scientist of our times, right?
Okay.
Literally, books are written based off of information he's discovered on viruses, right? They teach stuff based on stuff that he's discovered or uncovered in his data. So the whole field is saturated with Fauci's information.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He's fake news. If he doesn't fit an agenda,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. It's exactly what you're saying.
Have you heard of...
He's become a celebrity, though. That's not my point.
Have you heard of literature from the scientific community on Fauci? Have you read on any?
I haven't
literature
dove
from
too
the
deep.
Yeah.
I haven't dove. Is there some negative press or what?
Yeah, there's plenty.
There are Nobel laureates and there are virologists who basically, without mincing their words too much, there's a lot of allegations. There's a lot of allegations on Fauci, okay? One of which is that he's a intellectual thief.
Yeah. There's a lot of that.
What does that mean exactly?
More specifically,
remember turnitin.com?
Oh yeah, I do.
If he had turnitin.com, he would receive a failing grade, kind of stuff. I know.
That doesn't make the science wrong.
I know.
No.
You're right. Doesn't make the science wrong. There are, however, the reason these allegations are brought up is that not only was the material intellectually, plagiarized, but it was also politicized, so that once he got his hands on it and began advocating it, there was an effort to disincentivize any sort of updates or additions to his theory.
Right.
And that is when we begin to see an uprise from the scientific community, because a lot of people were silenced.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people were discredited and defunded in their efforts to update the literature. This is definitely an area that you're just not going to see in conventional news, which is why I find that it is very imperative that people understand that there is the story that these agencies will sell to you on the screen.
Yeah.
And if you feel like it behooves you to know a little more, you're going to have to go behind the scenes a little bit. And that's difficult to do. It's difficult to figure out what to trust.
Well, right. How do you go behind the scenes?
Oh, that is a very good question.
I mean, it all depends on what your news bubble is, right? I mean, ultimately, that's kind of the root of this.
Maybe after this podcast we can talk about that. Okay. I prefer not to talk about that here because it gets into the territory.
Mm-hmm.
That's not very, very, like, why do journalists keep their sources anonymous?
Or not share.
I would think to
just not share
protect.
them.
Okay.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Or,
Now,
but how do you know how that's legit, right?
Well,
Right.
that's the sacrifice you have to make. I can't. If you told me something insane right now about NASA, guess what? I can't tell. For your interest, dude. I can't tell anybody that you told me that.
Oh, sure, right. Well,
You know,
but I could also be bullshitting you, and you have no idea.
It could be
because you don't work at NASA.
Yeah.
I agree with you, but I would have to investigate your claims.
Of course,
It'd be
as
good.
everyone should.
And forensic investigation is not easy.
It's time consuming.
It's
You're right.
time consuming. It
Yeah.
takes decades.
It's kind of a conundrum. Yeah.
It takes decades for criminal investigators to figure out that guy raped this kid 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Totally. I hear
So-
what you're saying.
Like, let's talk about one thing, for example, for Anthony Fauci.
Now be careful now what you say.
Right.
Don't want to get canceled.
We've already been canceled.
We've already been canceled about that.
Do you know who Carrie Mullis is?
Carrie Mullis.
Carrie Mullis.
It doesn't ring a bell.
He won the Nobel Prize for Chemistry in the 1990s for creating and developing the PCR test.
Okay. Oh, yeah, you had a recent guest that was talking about PCR tests,
Yeah.
right?
Do you remember who who it was? Was it a man or a woman?
That was a woman.
Dr. Pam Popper. So she was talking
fun
about.
name.
Yeah, it is a fun name. So she was talking about that, but this is. We had heard about this long before we had her on. She just brought it up again, and I could play the videos. They're on my computer, but I'd rather not just like sit here and listen to them. I can send them to you afterward if you want to see them. Basically, what the worry is that the PCR test is being misinterpreted.
Let's
actually.
call it the pumpkin test.
The pumpkin test. It's being misinterpreted. So when Carrie Mullis developed it, he's basically developing it to see what you can amplify it so much that you can see anything that's inside of anybody. Whether it's just dead cells, whether it's little viruses, blah, 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 blah. There's I believe it's a virology conference where Carrie Mullis is on the board on the screen, and they're asking him how it gets misused, and he says, well, it doesn't really get misused, it gets misinterpreted. So when you take the PCR test and you amplify it, past 40 cycles, past 45 cycles threshold, you'll basically be able to find anything in anybody. And what's interesting is he said actually that kind of on a spiritual level brings up a Buddhist notion of we are all a little bit of everything. That's not what I'm worried about, though. It's just cool to think about that for a second. When we listen to Dr. Fauci talk about that, he says when you bring it up to 40 cycles, when you bring it up to 45 cycles,
He didn't even say 4 or 5. He said 36, 37.
Sorry, you're right. He said 36, yeah. When you get it 36 equal to or greater than, you're going to start seeing dead nucleotides. And so what we've seen is that they run, and we have the manuals on the PCR test right now.
This is the official manual.
The CDC manuals.
Okay.
They run the PCR at 40 or 45. this is where the false positives come from, because you're pulling up a bunch of dead nucleotides. And if you were sick in the past with something like the flu, if you were sick with something similar, you're going to have those in you. When you run it at that high of a cycle, it makes it more likely that you're going to get a positive. These are their words, not my words.
And I want to let you speak
them.
because we're doing a lot of talking at you.
And
I'm learning here.
Last thing is, Carrie Mullis, when interviewed on Anthony Fauci, had nothing good to say. He said, now, that's just one man's opinion, of course. But like we value Anthony Fauci's opinion in the news, I think we should also value potentially the guy whose test we're using to do all this stuff today. And he says, Anthony Fauci doesn't know nothing about nothing. I can play the video. But it's just as an example.
I mean, hey, a scientist versus scientist, maybe he is going to say that. Maybe that's whatever. But
and the most important thing about Anthony, quick, the most important thing about Anthony Fauci and the allegations regarding intellectual dishonesty really comes when they're talking about HIV, and we're talking about Luc Montagnier, and we're talking about Janet Malkovich, and we're talking about how Anthony Fauci will not change his overall thesis on HIV affecting the human immune system when it is contrarian to the data that they've seen today, aka HIV doesn't necessarily cause AIDS in humans, but rather our own immune cells do. And there are a number of studies that are saying that. And that's not like saying HIV doesn't cause AIDS in a weird conspiracy way. It's just like they're just realizing that they've seen people who have HIV do not have AIDS. And they said, why is that happening? And sometimes people's immune cells attack themselves and it causes AIDS while they have HIV. It's very complicated. And that's about as far as I can go on that. Let me just say it's complex and it's nuanced, and the story that we get in the mainstream is not the whole story.
No doubt about that. No, that's interesting stuff. Thanks for the lesson. But I to the original point, what do you do about it? I mean,
I don't know.
You got conflicting information from political outlets, news outlets. You got conflicting points of view in the scientific community.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody is really literate enough to fact check a scientific, analytical, technical piece of data or paper or publication or whatever.
Yeah.
So what do you do?
What do we do?
I mean, that is a very good point. What does anybody do? Why does anybody go through bio classes? Why does anybody take a chemistry course? Why does anybody go through a physics department curriculum? Why does anybody try to become an expert on anything if it's all going to change in 2 decades' time when we discover new scientific data? But if I'm hesitant on running deep with this argument, even though I feel like it's a solid argument, because
that's as far as I want to go on it.
Yeah, but because once again, intellectual laziness to me is like saying ignorance is bliss, or it's like saying that well, we don't know, so fuck it. It's not adequate. If that was the attitude, we wouldn't have scientists. If that was the attitude, we wouldn't have ion propulsion.
Well, everybody's got different attitudes, though, right? So you're going to have people that are willing to put up with that and roll with the punches. And then you got people that are just too busy trying to make ends meet to give a damn, right? That's the problem.
Yeah, that is a huge problem. And that's why, for example, at the beginning of lockdown, we said, we honestly don't have the luxury of quarantining for days on end because, especially me, freshly out of college, I got to work every day on the music stuff to really make the money. And so I can't just stay inside and not do anything. Now maybe I can get creative, and we've gotten creative actually, but that's why I was going out every day. Yeah. Going out every day and playing in the park actually to busk, and made a lot of money, which is cool.
Nice.
But another thing is I don't know what to do, but I can say maybe one thing as to what not to do. And I think maybe what not to do is to acquiesce 100% to one opinion without taking into consideration other opinions that are equally as valid.
Yeah.
And taking the time to do so without being hasty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I say, you know what? Rather than spend 45 minutes watching The Real Housewives of Orange County, maybe I'll spend that 45 minutes on NCBI research database.
If you trust it.
If you trust it.
Yeah.
Right, if you trust it. But even like somebody like me, like, yeah, I mean, let's go into the peer-reviewed journals. I want to see it.
NCBI, Nature Magazine. There's so many. Johns Hopkins has a lot.
Johns
of
Hopkins,
studies, You know,
Even
Penn has a lot of studies.
Even the
on
World
it.
Health Organization website.
They have
For example,
yeah.
I did a ton of reading this past summer. I got really kind of into like thinking about electromagnetic frequency and all that stuff. And I said, where is there a lot of information on that? World Health website. They have all the data on electromagnetic frequencies and what's healthy and what's not. And I got my little EMF reader, and I'm just kind of walking around seeing what's going on.
How's that going?
Everything's high. I'll be honest.
What's the threshold for high?
Above 40. Now, it's been a minute since I did this. I have it in my room right now, but it was
Give me a
over the
reading.
summer where I was being really intense about it. Basically, everywhere I walked was a red beep level.
Yeah, Houston's obviously big in the energy sector. So I just moved to Houston, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm pretty new.
Oh, you're new.
Just about, I moved here around Thanksgiving last
Oh,
year.
okay, cool.
So, really only 4 months. And yeah, I moved from San Diego. Power's a little different out there. But obviously, here they don't bury a lot of their power lines, right? A lot of them are those high tension power lines overhead. Everywhere, even through the nice neighborhood. You'll just see them running straight through a bunch of mansions. It's hilarious. On a golf course. It's crazy.
Yeah.
But you got Galveston down the road. It's pumping all this energy and refinement this way. So that's not super surprising to me.
Yeah.
It's
Our
kind of an
kitchen was
unfortunate truth.
High.
Yeah, I believe it. Yeah, I mean, you guys got wires all around. So I don't know. That's something I've noticed as well. Personally, when I was looking for a place to live, I'm a scientist by trade, but I have some things that I'm like about, and I don't want to live closer than like 1,000 feet to like a high tension line. And I mean the big
Yeah.
ones, the big ones that are like 200 feet tall.
yeah.
The big structures.
Yeah.
The wires this thick.
What are the safety concerns for you about that?
I don't know. Do I want to find out?
Well, I mean, it's
Well,
associated
It's a lot
with
of power.
cancer.
Yeah, it's long duration. By the way, it's not like you spend a weekend there, you're gonna
No,
get cancer.
no.
It's you live there for 25 years and then you notice an effect, right?
Exactly.
So, I don't know. It just seems like there's not enough data that's old enough or available enough to really. I found when I was looking for a house to live in, I found a few research papers on it, peer reviewed. I like to look at science and double check how legitimate it is. I don't just go to like Snopes.com and like figure if it's true or not, right?
Our favorite website, Snopes.com.
I don't know why
Partially
you would.
funded by Facebook and TikTok.
I wouldn't doubt. That's funny. But I read stuff about it, and that was what I found. They were like basically for long duration, if you're within 800 to 900 feet for a long period of time, there's some potential risk of like increasing your chances of getting leukemia, or it was something like that. It was something like that. But again, it was just one paper I found, and that was enough to be like, I'll look at the house over there, not the one over here,
Yeah. I mean, that's why I
is
say
funny.
go on the World Health website and you see all the levels, at thresholds of what's safe, what's not. And then you walk around with your EMF reader and you're like, oh shit, we're above everything right now.
Yeah, did you take it out of town? You check out places besides Houston?
I've only checked out Houston and my hometown, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati. Oh yeah, I saw the plates outside from Ohio.
It's
Okay.
that bad now, imagine in like 10, 20 years.
Yeah.
Oh,
sure.
That's the thing.
At that point,
This isn't like tinfoil hat shit. This is.
I'm not interested in that.
This is we don't know really the long term effects of having gigahertz Wi-Fi in our house. We haven't had enough experience with that. Even if you go to the old BlackBerry manuals back in like early 2000s, mid 2000s, they say don't put it to your ear.
Yeah, you know what? I was trying to be polite. I normally take my phone out just to get it further away from here.
You can talk about that.
When I discovered that I have some benign cysts in
no
my
way.
testicles,
Oh shit.
especially on the left side where I keep my phone all the time, I went
shit.
into a bit of a rabbit hole.
Wow.
And I discovered an obscene amount of university data and government data on this. Hundreds and hundreds of pages that is when I realized the concern for high frequency mutagenic effects
Yeah.
was actually studied for decades in private laboratories. And now where the whole tinfoil hat thing comes in is when people hear that, they hear, what? They're studying that and they said what? And then they run with that, and then that turns into a sensationalist story. But if you look at the origins of the rumor itself, the origins are thousands of pages of laboratory studies. And what I found very compelling is that at a certain point, it became troublesome for the government to release this kind of technology decade after decade without releasing that fine print about it as well. We take, excuse me, on a daily basis, we consume things and we are interacting with things that we frankly don't have any idea about how it's affecting our health, nor do we care. But legally, for the government to sanction these technologies, they have to divulge the fine print. And the fine print, in not so many words, is, it might be bad, we're not sure yet.
Sure. Yeah. And you take into account corporate interests, and, you know, it gets really frightening.
Speaking of it might be bad, we're not sure yet. Give us your thoughts on
Careful now.
On the shot right now.
Careful.
Oh, on the shot. Yeah, I know. We should be careful. Yeah, so I am not anti-vaccine. I have vaccines in my system. You know,
Likewise.
I had to go to boarding school. I had to go to college. I had to do all that fun stuff.
Same,
so you got to get
same.
vaxxed.
Yeah.
As somebody who is, again, been trained in data analytics and research, especially behavioral research and human-based research, you know, I guess a part of me, I was having this conversation with myself the other day, I swear to God, because I was like, a part of me wants more time-proven results before I take a vaccine, because the vaccines I have, they're not brand new.
They
Right?
take about anywhere a little over 5 years.
Like I got like meningitis and stuff, you know, like it's been
They're
around for a while, right?
They're the more traditional vaccines.
Right. So that leads to the question, because in everything that I do, I try to be somewhat of there's a healthy level of skepticism, right?
Yeah.
Let's just be honest. There is, like we were saying earlier, question everything, right? But do your own validity. So I don't know. I wish there was more data. I wish there was more time to go off of, and I could feel like here, not up here, but here I could feel like there would be no issue. And the other question that comes up too, and I was thinking about this, and by the way, I'd love to get vaccinated when it's maybe a little bit more time proven. But at the same time, how do you do that, and how does the whole populace do that if it revolves around herd immunity to really be effective? You know, how do people just allow for stuff to be time proven but still show that it's going to work at the same, you know, those are conflicting. So it's a tough call.
It's been pure conflicting.
But what I want to talk about though is, you know, there's all these crazy other strains popping up, these highly contagious, you know, the UK strain and other ones.
1157.
So like what happens if you get vaxxed for the current one? Is it effective against the strain?
You'll get another shot.
And then,
and then another shot.
Then what?
And then
another rapidly produced vaccination. Is it compatible with the last one? I don't know. We don't know. There's not enough time. There's not enough data. So it brings up the question. The question becomes, at what point is too much of that cycle? I don't have the answer. I don't know. I wish I had more data.
Do you ever think that it just sounds like a whole load of bullshit?
What
Ever?
particularly?
The rhetoric surrounding all of it.
A vaccine in general, or the COVID vaccine? That's out now?
Like what you just mentioned with all the crazy strains, all the new vaccines, you can get vaccinated, but you're not safe. Then you got to get revaccinated. Then
yeah, I mean, this is uncharted territory, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we never had a rapidly produced vaccine that's administered by the you know, given to you by the military, right?
Yeah.
So
what we think about a lot is we want to keep everybody as safe as humanly possible. But when you look at everything and you look at the recovery rate, for example, very, very, very high.
For the vaccine or for COVID?
No, for COVID.
Yeah.
The recovery rate, 98, 99. I've heard anywhere from 99.9 to 98.9.
Yeah.
Long story short.
This isn't going on YouTube. This
Yeah,
can't
right.
This can't go on YouTube.
Does the severity even warrant a vaccine?
It's a great question.
Everybody and their mama wants to say, oh, they lied about the numbers. They lied about the numbers. We can go to Johns Hopkins. We can see, maybe you saw this in the other episode. Shanghai had 7 deaths. They claimed 7 deaths.
There's something weird going on with the data, and there's international relations that are a part of this equation.
There's that,
I don't know, and everything's measured in different ways. There was no group of scientists that got together on planet Earth and said, we're going to measure everything the same way.
Right.
Here's a standard for how to gauge COVID. Nobody did that. It's all it's compartmentalized knowledge.
And now, as of 2 days ago, you almost can't even talk about it coming from China.
Oh.
Because then that's going to inspire anti-Asian sentiment.
True.
Which is horrible. And what that guy did, I don't know one lick about anything regarding that. But let's go with the story that this man killed 8 people. 6 of them happened to be Asian women. Horrible, 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 horrible. No person in their right mind would do that. He's not in his right mind. That does not mean that we cannot have a discussion on where the virus came from. And if it happened to come from China, fine, so be it.
Right.
If it happened to come from Italy, fine, so be it.
Bro, if it came from this studio. So.
And again, this goes back to the thing that I said the other day. So also, let's not call the Spanish flu anymore.
Yeah, that's my friend likes to bring that up too. What about the Spanish flu? Well, it was 100 years ago. Things were a little less progressive back then.
Still, let's not call it the Spanish flu. 100 years ago.
Yeah.
We want reparations for 100 years ago. I feel that. I understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? All I'm saying is it's a slippery slope, and it's creating a lot of divide and a lot of distrust.
If all our arguments were based on ethos and pathos, we wouldn't get anything done.
Yeah. And he knows that.
That's why we need science.
Exactly.
That people trust.
That's why you're here.
That's good science, not bad science.
We must scrutinize in political literature. The reason to me that I am very scrutinizing of the scientific community, as I am of the plebeian community or whatever you want to call it, is that human beings at their core can be corrupted. I don't care if you have a PhD.
Yeah.
I have a master's degree. Whatever, they can be corrupted. Your accolades are not important into the discussion of the human spirit. And
spiritual people become corrupted every day, 24/7.
I mean, so-called spiritual leaders. So, if that is the case, now there's one sort of ethological argument that I kind of do get behind, and just like an investigative reporter or an criminal investigator would look into the history of an individual to see perhaps patterns in their behavior, that is one ethos argument I can get behind, because that's...
Are you saying a track record,
essentially? A track record. That's investigative. That's forensic.
Yeah.
There's the other type of ethos argument that I can't get behind, which is that, well... you tie your shoelaces weird, so I can't listen to you, or you are not a whatever. You don't have this kind of diet, so I won't listen to you, or you wear your hats weird, whatever. The red herring stuff, the ad hominem attacks,
right?
The logical fallacies that we've known for thousands of years, according to the Socratic theory, are logical fallacies. We use that on a daily basis in discussion.
Oh yeah.
And to go even a level deeper, like we were talking about yesterday or 2 days ago with that hominin thing, we look at somebody's track record, we look at somebody's past claims. That does not necessarily mean their current claim is wrong.
Exactly.
And so it's even more complicated on that level.
Yeah.
It's like, they've made 100 wrong claims, and they're making one now.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll think it's wrong, we're going to side with wrong, but that doesn't mean we're not going to take it into account, we're not going to look at it and scrutinize it, and maybe it's right, and maybe they got it right on the 101st try.
Yeah.
Usually that's kind of how it goes, honestly.
Yeah.
You don't get it right from the get-go.
No.
Did you get the orbiting thing right first try?
We'll see. We haven't tried yet. But
can we work on, can we simulate stuff? Can we test out stuff? Can you invite us there?
Yeah, well, you know what? Actually, Johnson Space Center's like still essential personnel only right now. Unfortunately, but which is funny because the tour group, it's called like Space Center Houston. They're still operating, but not all employees are allowed to come back unless they're essential. It's really funny. But
Is that where you're going day to day? You're going to the Johnson Space Center?
Not day to day. I have a badge. I can get on site, but my actual office is technically right down the road. But of course, due to COVID, we're all working from home. So I moved across the country to work from home.
Well, if you don't, I'm not going to get specific, but I'm just
Sure.
curious. What area of Houston do you live in?
Oh, South Houston, close to JSC. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So
That's a nice area.
yeah, I actually like it. I've
Have
been
you
pleasantly surprised.
Have you been down to Baybrook area?
I've driven
Baybrook
by. I
Mall?
haven't really hung out.
Okay.
JC is at South Central.
Yeah, it's kind of. Yeah, it's kind of. I don't even know how to explain. It's the southernmost tip, kind of right by like League City or
Yeah.
Clear. I live in Clear Lake, so
Oh, okay.
right
cool.
down there.
That's a nice area. I've been playing like a jazz brunch in Baybrook the past couple Sundays.
Oh, cool.
That's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Once you're done grilling me, I'll ask you some questions about music and stuff. Cause
We're
We're
not
done-
grilling
we're
you.
done
Not
grilling
grilling
you.
you.
Figurative speech.
Yeah. I was gonna ask you about your shirt, and then
I was gonna ask you
but
about your shirt,
also,
too.
Let's finish the COVID stuff.
We're
first.
done with it. We're done with that. If we keep talking about that, none of this will get uploaded.
That's-
So,
Hey, should we
fair.
tell him or no
Oh.
about what happened?
I mean,
now you
at
gotta tell
some
me.
point we're gonna have to maybe address it. I'm not sure. But, whatever. We'll see.
In short, actually yesterday our whole YouTube channel got deleted.
Oh yeah, I clicked on a link today. I was trying to
Yeah, I got
do some homework on you.
completely deleted. We only had one strike.
They skipped other strikes.
They skipped all the other ones. They actually quoted something as a scam.
Yeah, they said we were running a scam, which I wasn't aware we were doing that. But
The only thing that I could think that would make them think that is through our sponsorship that we have through
The water bottle company?
The water bottle company.
filters, yeah.
Totally legit. Like, maybe you've heard or not, I've been a huge supporter of that company, and I was like, could we partner with you guys? And they said, yeah, totally. So we just have a discount code. That's it. But in all honesty, I think,
Seems a bit harsh.
we started bleeping people if they were talking about the current virus, if they were saying anything that goes against
it's
the
fake
grain.
news, man. You're tailoring it for. No, I'm just
I
kidding.
know, right?
I'm just kidding.
But we've had all different peoples on here
Yeah.
that have
that's-
all different
that's nice.
opinions.
Mm.
Yeah.
And if they say something that does go against the World Health Organization or the Facebook fact checkers, we'll bleep it. And what we're thinking is maybe they got upset and they said, well, we can't censor it with the AI. We can't, when the video is processing, we can't catch it because there's literally no audio there and it's just a bleep. And maybe they're like, well, let's figure out how else we can get them down. Thankfully, though, we're still on all the streaming platforms, Spotify, iTunes, Amazon, all that good stuff. So we're still up. We'll probably move to another video platform as well.
Oh, cool. All right.
But it's alarming.
Look, man. If you came to me and we're having a civil debate, and then you just whacked me across the face
Yeah.
for me to shut up, that's bad.
Most of the time, yeah.
I would say the only time that is not bad is if I'm here encouraging violence of any sort.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And so that to me is not only the highest level of intellectual laziness, it is also extremely damning about the trajectory of a nation which insists that these groups of people have all the power to dictate what can be said.
Yeah.
It is extremely damning to me. The reason why it is damning to me, is I come from a culture that's already been through this.
Yeah.
I've already left a culture, post-Soviet Union, which was all about the bureaucratic echelon of the knowledge owners, the information machine, Pravda, what the government owns, what information you are allowed to talk about. I've seen it. I'm not interested in that anymore. I'm done with it. And for me to see it again here, I'm a little depressed about it. Because my family thought that this was supposed to be a haven for that sort of stuff.
Hey, call me a bitch. I was almost in tears last night because what we talked about that does get a strike, that's not the main thing that I'm worried about. It's like it's like what I described to my girlfriend. She was a visual artist. I said, it's like if somebody walked into your room, they didn't like your art and they ripped up all of it and they say you're not going to have it back. Or let's say somebody deleted all our music. I mean, they did delete our music because we had all our music on the channel as well. Oh. And it's like, man, that's just mean. Okay.
Yeah. Seems a little
we're not
strict.
We're not peddling anything that's that crazy.
Did you see anything that you thought was a little weird for us? I mean, obviously weird is one thing, but scammy
on your channel?
Yeah.
I didn't check out too much of it. I was just looking at the IG clips that you had, actually.
Okay.
And I clicked on the YouTube link today, and it was obviously down. Yeah. But no, I mean, not from the clips I saw.
We like to play a game and use a little like, and for lack of a better term, a little clickbaity. We're having honestly we're having fun.
Well, that's just
doing
good business.
I mean, we got to do.
It's business. Yeah. We're trying to sell water bottles, okay?
Yeah, that's really careful.
But the cool thing is we've actually
don't want any
sold
more sponsor issues.
Right. Cool thing is we've actually sold a decent number of water bottles, and that's just a good thing because that's just promoting extremely clean water, and especially living in Houston.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
They told us the other day, so we just got water back yesterday.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So we went a month.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Holy crap! So how did that work? What did you do? You just had bottled water.
Water the whole time in our filters, but one of the plumbers was like, these pipes are so bad. You guys are being poisoned. And we're like, holy shit! So that's why we're everybody deserves access to clean water.
Yeah.
And if you use our code Houston Ensemble, you can get 20% off.
Jeez.
Well,
anyway, that's
what does your shirt mean, man?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So this is the Black Dahlia murder. I'm a big metalhead. Always have been. So this is just one of my faves. I saw him live actually. I don't know, probably just under a year before COVID. It was the first time I saw him live because it's a shame actually. I've been a big fan of him since high school. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're just crazy American technical death metal, I guess you could call them. Mm-hmm. Which I love. You guys were pretty technical on stage. That's what I enjoyed about you guys.
Cool.
There's a lot of overlap between what I like, and when I say metal, there's lots of different types of metal, right? There's Metallica. There's more technical stuff that no one's heard of, like I don't know. Lamb of God or Cannibal Corpse, and then there's stuff that really nobody's ever heard of, which is like cattle decapitation, and that's like just like in the clubs that are a very subsect of crowds, very very not popular.
Mm-hmm. So, a little bit satanic, if you will.
Sure. In theory. So I just like the technicality of it. The speed of it has always been fascinating to me. But there's a lot of similar vibes and patterns and counts as there is to jazz music. Or you guys are doing a lot of offbeat stuff. You guys are doing a lot of time signature changes, and you were going on some wicked solos and stuff too that were honestly, I mean, the alternate picking's there, the fret movement's there. You could play some of this stuff if you really wanted to. If you had the right setup.
You should have heard him last night.
Okay.
He was going nuts.
Yeah, I couldn't make it last night, by the way. I was trying to.
It was just trio last night, and it was a lot of fun. Just me, him, and the drummer.
Okay.
No saxophone.
The Ghostbuster.
Yeah.
Because of the trench coat. Oh, shit.
I think I upset him, by the way. Sorry, saxophone man.
No, you didn't.
He said he was going for Inspector Gadget. And I said, you got no hat. You got goggles. I thought you were a Ghostbuster. You're wearing a trench coat.
Wow. He was in a really famous band that toured all over the world called the Sufferers, and they're from Houston. And he was
sick. No, you guys are all sick at your instruments. It was really fun to watch.
We have a lot of fun. We
gotta be good at something. We're not good at anything else.
We're happy that we can just have pallets upon pallets of Eighth Wonder beer.
That's true. Yeah, so they pay you with beer or what?
They do pay us actual money, but they also supplement it with beer.
That makes sense.
If they can keep us alcoholics, we won't ask for too much money.
So what kind of metal did you used to play then, or what was your?
Well, the first guy I got into, when I picked up guitar when I was like 15, 16 years old, was Yngwie Malmsteen.
Oh, wonderful. One of the guitar gods.
One of the
In my-
original
Yeah.
shredder gods.
Yngwie.
Uli John Roth from the Scorpions. Also one of my heroes because he was a shredder, but he was a melodic shredder.
Old school, yes.
Robert Marcello, I believe, is another very melodic shredder. And so many others. What I found fascinating is that, you know, they were combining some of the harmonic elements of like Baroque style, classical style music, which is why it was called neoclassical metal. And I was, again, mesmerized by the clarity, the ease, you know, just the technical mastery. But
Right.
of course, when then I discovered the lush melodies and harmonies and rhythms of jazz, then there was no going back after that for me.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's funny. It's almost opposite of my experience. So at least I used to play. I don't really play too much anymore. Although I'm fixing that problem.
Sweet.
I grew up playing drums.
Mm.
And most of my initial teachings were from jazz musicians. I'm from New Jersey, so like there's a lot of old heads over there from like when, you know, I mean, my first drum teacher was Tony DiNicola, and he was like kind of like, you imagine like I Love Lucy type bands like back in the day, black and white, kind of with like the stage band and Ricky dancing on stage and stuff. Like he was one of those guys for real. Like he's got all these pictures, but a real like bona fide jazz musician. And that gave me my roots, and then you know, my interest in music just kept getting heavier and faster, and it led to that transition into metal. So kind of the opposite order of what you're talking about.
Wow, so you started on drums, yeah. I started on piano, actually, interestingly enough.
Nice. I tried that out. It didn't stick.
Yeah.
I
Technically,
wasn't
both
dexterous enough.
percussion instruments, right?
Yeah, I started on piano too.
Yeah.
I wasn't good at my fine motor skills till much later in life. So the looser ones were kind of going around the set was easier for me.
I want to play drums badly. When we have a drum set here,
Yeah.
I will practice it. Like when we've had a drum set here.
You should.
Uh,
It's fun. You can get an electric set too. Mess around with that.
yeah, that's true. We're looking for one of our friends to just donate one over to us.
One of our colleagues, friends who works with us a lot, you know, we're going to set up a deal. We're
Yeah.
gonna have a little deal here.
Get some water bottles for a drum set. Or
Yeah. Well, I personally want to get into like the really, really interesting stuff,
Oh, please.
but I feel like we got to do that behind the closed curtains.
Okay.
What do
Well,
you think?
It's your
Chad?
podcast.
What do
so.
you think?
Yeah, we can.
You want to, or you want to keep going a little bit, or is there anything else you want to talk about, or?
Man, I feel very good about it.
Because we're just having a nice convo, you know. I feel like it's been cool.
Yeah.
We've had a great conversation.
Yeah.
Very chill.
And yeah, now we can get into that really nerdy stuff. All right? So, everybody, this has been another episode of Houston Ensemble. Fight the power. Okay? As Malcolm X said, we have to be stern. And we have to insist that our voices are heard. Sometimes there's no other way. A wonderful episode with Joe, straight from NASA. I hope he doesn't lose his job. I think he's fine.
I'm just loosely associated. Don't worry. Yeah.
And follow us at Houston Ensemble. We're not going anywhere. Epic Water Filters. Use promo code Houston Ensemble, lowercase, one word, for 20% off your Epic Water Filter. I cannot stress enough, literally the waters in these pipes are poison. So do yourself a favor.
That is funny.
And we'll see you guys next time on 3, 1, 2,